I have dreamed about skating the Indian School Drainage Aqueduct in Albuquerque, New Mexico, like I said, for well over 20 years. They have a contest there every year called the Slap Ditch Contest, and oh God, I wanted to enter that forever, but the opportunities never presented themselves for me, particularly when I lived in California, to make my way all the way to Albuquerque for that contest while raising kids and stuff like that, and having all this skate terrain there in California, it never happened. But it is now. It's the preparation and it's the opportunity. And part of that preparation was I wanted to skate a board that was for that purpose. I didn't want to just grab my pool board, and I do have that Yao surf skate behind me that has a very specific engineered front truck that it swings and it pivots like an Indy truck on a kingpin. It has like 2 axes, so it gives you that surf feel. However, you don't skate that board fast, and so that drainage canal in Albuquerque, New Mexico it's 10-15 miles long downhill, and so I want to skate fast and I want to skate smooth, and I want to be able to carve deep, and I want my carves to be very responsive. So I chose not to go with a 50-degree kingpin, say like a Randall truck, because I'm just not that familiar with them, and more importantly, you just can't find them right now. So I went with 169 Indies. I know I'm very comfortable riding Indies. I know how they turn. I take the bushings out, I lubricate them up with Dawn dish soap and wax. It takes the squeak away, and it makes them like super buttery. It makes them super carby, responsive, and I can go fast because they're 169. So I have that stability, and I know how to turn them. I was going to go with the Orangutan 77 millimeter by 77A, which is the hardness. They're really soft wheels for like downhill. But the 77 millimeter was just a little bit too big of a wheel without wheel cutouts or wheel wells. So I chose to stay with the rat bones. These are 85As, and this wheel I've skated. This is a reissue, but these rat bone wheels I've skated since the early 80s, like 82, 83, along with this exact truck, the independent 169s. And I love half-inch risers because it lifts the wheel away from the board, and I can really get some really deep carves. And it just, I think a skateboard looks better when it has half-inch risers. It's just my idea of a skateboard. And so I'm not going to go as far as to say that, grip tape is a lost art and this, that, and the other, but it kind of is. It's not appreciated as much as it was back when I was younger. We loved getting creative with our grip tape jobs, and this one right here isn't a particularly hard or complicated pattern, but it looks really cool, and it's kind of a nod to a skateboard that I had back in the early 80s, and it was a skateboard called the General. It wasn't the Ripper. The Ripper looks like the General. The General was just slash stripe graphics, but the Ripper had the skull in the middle, like coming out of the skateboard. Okay, that was the Ripper board. The General board, they didn't make very many of them, and I lucked out. And for those of you that have known me for decades, you will remember that board. I don't know anyone else who actually owned one of those boards. And that board had white wrap-on rails. I think they were wrap-on rails, but they were white with sex screws. Did it upright, and it had white wrap-on wheels. identical to these, but they were probably 90As. And the reason I went with putting this board together as opposed to buying, a longboard, Sector 9 or something like that would really be cool for, those long carves, is I skate a certain way, and I didn't want to learn how to skate a longboard. I know how to ride this board. It's basically, by today's standards, a longboard. But I set it up different. I'm running my trucks loose. I'm running them lubed up. I'm not running wrap-on reds. These are like $15 to $17 bearings, super good bearings. However, they're made in China. On this board, I went all out with the Swiss. I went with Swiss Super 6. These bearings are made in Switzerland, and back in the day, all good bearings they were German bearings, but the Swiss have taken that over, and this is a $65 set of bearings for this board. So I like that I ride blank boards. I don't represent anyone, although I don't think anybody cares if I represent anybody. It's my own thing, right? I've been skating a long time. I've never really been that good at it. Although I thoroughly enjoy it, and I like just doing my own thing. So I'm gonna get my brand out in my shop. I'm gonna put it in my forge, heat it up, and I'm gonna put a Johnny G brand right here in the middle of this deck. And fuck it, it's my board. It's my board, and that means so much more to me. And I'm one more board ahead. When I left California, through my divorce, I left with, I think, 4 or 5 boards. I left with my Land Yachts downhill board, my Matt Hensley board that I featured in a previous video. I had a 360 Frankie Russo, I forget his name, but he was the 360 champion of the world. I have his commemorative board. It has steel precision back wheels and just regular front wheels, and it's for spinning back. When I was in California, I was kind of off the rails and buying stuff that had meaning to me. I had an original Hosoi hammerhead with, I believe they were Hosoi rocket wheels, original from the 80s, never been changed. Just like my Matt Hensley, California, probably given away. I had a J Adams Z-Flex, probably given away. I had although it has a little bit of a stigma to it, but I had a Vision Gator board from the 80s with rails, original wheels. I had a Dogtown Wes Humpston board that when I was writing articles for Mike Hirsch with SoCal Skates, I did a few interviews. I did a really good interview with Steve Alba. You can find that online, by the way, if you Google John Gleason's skateboarder. You can Google it that way. You can go to SoCalSkateParks.com and Google Salba interview. I did a really good interview with Steve Caballero, Holly Lyons. I did a fantastic one with Randy Caton up in Tahoe, the Inman crew up there, and just what they have going on is incredible. The only difference with a lot of these groups is they didn't have the Craig Stesics to take photos and write stories. So they weren't featured like some of the other groups around Southern California, which is unfortunate, but they're rooted in the same genre and the same era. And at any rate, SoCal Skate Parks, when I was writing those articles, Mike Hirsch gave me a Wes Humpston signed Dogtown graphic that Wes Humpston just finished this graphic. And this board was one of few, and it was signed. And Mike Hirsch, him and I were skating the block, Van Skate Park, one night, and out of appreciation for writing articles for his site, he gave me that board out in the parking lot. his trunk was open, and he goes, "Hey, Johnny, here, I want you to have this. Show a little appreciation for, the hard work that you are doing with writing these articles and stuff like that." So left it behind. I have no idea where it's at. It could be in a storage shed, or my son could have it. I don't know. My Alva boards, I featured one in a previous video. That one in particular, I said means something to me because Tony handed it to me. But I probably had 15 of those decks. I had my own skateboard brand called River City Skates, and when we were running that skate club, so I had probably 100 different boards with different varying significance for me. Some of them were wall hangers to never be ridden. Some of them I still ride today, like my Matt Hensley board. The graphics on the bottom, it's peeling off, but it's like Jay Leno and his car collection. He doesn't just have cars that he goes out there and gawks at. He gets in these things and drives them and maintains them. So doing a little bit of grip tape job. Like I said, not a lost art, but God, it sure looks good, doesn't it? So, and talking about, the likes of Jay Leno and having boards or having cars that he maintains and drives, and I kind of do that with my boards. My Matt Hensley board has brand new bearings, has brand new bearings. My little Veriflex board, that thing's been torn apart, has new bearings. I could get on it and ride it today. And one of the ways I do it, especially when you invest the money in Swiss bearings, I like to ride fast and I like to ride smooth, and I like my skateboards to be quiet. I can't handle listening to flat spots on wheels, especially like in a pool, or the zing of worn out bearings, or boards that are just rattly and they have this hollow sound, because typically people don't ride with risers anymore, so the trucks are just right on the decks, and it's just, I'm sure it's a lot easier to do tricks on a board setup like that, but for me, I have my aesthetic and I have the way I like to skate, and that is just gliding across the surface of the earth. That's why I guess skateboarding is so appealing to me. It's almost like a magic carpet ride, and once you get to the point where you can incorporate that in a pool, particularly with corners. I love deep concrete or ramps that have corners, so you can skate fast. And so in taking care of and maintaining my skateboards, I go through seasons. It's like anything with skating. In 2007, man, I was skating super hard from 2002 to 2007. Running a skate club, running contests, traveling, taking the team, skating. And I got hurt. I had a bad run for, I don't know, it was probably a good month. I had 3 major concussions. One concussion was so bad that Pineapple was actually there. Mike Hirsch was there. Salva wasn't there, but he was at another slam. I forget who was there outside of those folks. There was a couple other old pros there, because we were having. It was at Montclair Skate Park. It wasn't opened that long, and I was skating really hard, really fast. I was hitting the coping. I always skate just a little bit beyond my capabilities. I always have, and I've paid for it. But when I don't pay for it, it's fun. It's fun pulling off stuff that, people slapping their boards around the coping. But more often than not, I eat concrete, and I was doing a backside grind in this, it's like a 12-foot bowl, 11 or 12-foot bowl there in Montclair, and Claremont or Montclair, one of those. My truck my wheels went actually over the coping, and they hung up just a little bit, just enough to spin my board backwards as I was coming back down. I didn't hang my trucks up, but they bounced just enough on that coping to throw me backwards. And then when I hit that slick concrete in that pool, I turned around and my ass hit the flat by the drain, and my head slammed backwards. And I always wear a helmet, and if I didn't wear a helmet on that particular day, that bail would have killed me. It would have cracked my head wide open. So they called the ambulance on me. I don't remember much of what was happening, but my son told me that I jumped up immediately and I was talking in a different language, very matter-of-factually, like I knew this language, and I was telling people this, that, and the other, and people were freaking out. I have no recollection of that, but I get up, they get me out of the pool, and I'm sitting up on this, I don't know, like a planter box or something along those lines, and the ambulance came like that, and I told the guys that I'm not going to the hospital, that I'm good. I got my son and a couple of people there that I drove, and I'm not going to the hospital. So as I vlog some of that backstory of some of the challenges I've had as a skater, not only why I love it so much and where it kind of came out of in my life, but the injuries that I've sustained, and I haven't even talked about, Jesus Christ. When I was younger, I lived my life for, I don't know, probably a year solid with a hematoma on my hip. I had, on both hips actually, I lived with the worst hippers out of anyone I've ever known. Skating backyard pools, skating rim pop pool, it was really kinky. And when you bailed, you typically didn't slide out on your knees down the tranny, and get up and just walk away. If you committed to shit at rim paw and it didn't go well, you were getting a fucking hipper. And I got hippers. I pissed blood. I've had hematomas, I think that's what they're called, just a big ball of blood pockets on my hips. And, I had a cast up to here. I got that going around the light. I broke my wrist. I snapped my wrist. When I hit the bottom by the drain, I jumped up and said, somebody needs to take me to the hospital. I wasn't second guessing, oh, is my arm broke? Can you move it? Oh, fucking A. It like shifted over. My wrist snapped, and I jumped up, and I forget who was in the pool. They took me to the hospital, and I didn't have insurance, so they told me to go home. Then I went to Riverside General, and they took me. But I broke my wrist going over the light on like a penny board. That's what they call them today. Just one of those plastic, shitty, like that little plastic banana board, right? I was like, oh, I want to go over the light on that. And I went over the light, and when I was coming down and I hit that kinky transition, the board flexed so much that it fucking stopped dead and wham, right into the concrete. I went up, over, and the board did not come back out of tranny. It fucking stopped. And I kicked myself in the ass for that. I was like, the fuck was I thinking? Going over the light on a fucking plastic banana board. I did it. I paid for it. I can't tell you how many times I broke my collarbone. Jesus Christ. I broke my collarbone. I used to skate. I used to live my life in a sling for the longest time, and I'd still take slams. I took a heavy slam at the Wedge one time there by the Tyler Mall off the 91 freeway. There's a little wedge, little drainage canal there, and I was in a sling, and whatever healing I did on that broken collarbone, I rewound that tape because I started from ground zero. I re-broke it, but it's like fucking hot sauce. It hurts, but you just can't stop eating it. That's the way I felt back then as a skater. I still do today, but I'm looking at 56 and my joints are talking to me, and I feel relatively healthy and active for a guy my age. But like I said, that's kind of the culture I came from, the cats. And anyways, tons of respect to all my brothers who have lived this lifestyle with me, and I've got to share a lot of memories with you guys. Tons of respect, and I wish everyone a very Merry Christmas. Johnny G.